All right, let's dive right in. We're going to unpack one of the biggest ideas of our time, sustainable development. And at its heart is a really simple but super powerful question. How do we meet our needs today without, completely wrecking the planet for the people who come after us? It's a challenge that has shaped global policy for decades, and its story starts with a simple yet profound idea.
This is the question. This is the whole ball game. How do we build a world that's prosperous, that's fair, and it's healthy for every single person alive today without pulling the rug out from under our own children and grandchildren? It is the ultimate long-term challenge.
And the answer, well, it's actually pretty elegant and powerful. This one sentence has basically become the guiding star for international policy for decades now. The really crucial insight here is that it's not a choice between today and tomorrow. It's a framework for figuring out how to serve both. And look, this isn't just about trees and polar bears, not by a long shot. Sustainable development is like a three-legged stool. You've got economic growth, sure, but it has to be the kind of growth that doesn't burn out its own fuel. You need social inclusion, making sure everyone gets a fair shake. And of course, you need environmental protection. They are totally inseparable. You take one leg away, and the whole thing just topples over.
So where did this game-changing idea even come from? Well, it wasn't like a light bulb just went off one day. It grew out of this rising global awareness that, hey, our planet has limits. And that awareness sparked a journey that turned one single conference into a massive worldwide movement.
Okay, so the story really gets going back in 1972 in Stockholm. For the first time ever, you had nations from all over the world in one room to talk specifically about the environment. This was a landmark meeting. It put environmental issues on the official global map and created a new group to keep an eye on them, the UN Environment Program, or UNEP.
But the idea was truly crystallized 15 years later in a groundbreaking report called Our Common Future. Now, you'll probably hear it called the Brundtland Report, named after the Commission's chair, the Prime Minister of Norway, Gro Harlem Brundtland. This report, it was about to change everything. What was so genius about the Brundtland Report was its central argument. It said that protecting the environment and growing our economies weren't enemies. In fact, they were two sides of the exact same coin. In the long run, you just couldn't have one without the other. This was the blueprint that officially defined sustainable development and basically set the stage for everything that came next.
Okay, so the idea is out there, it's defined, now what? Well, the next chapter is all about turning that big, powerful concept into actual, concrete action. And that wasn't going to happen on its own. It took a whole series of major global summits, each one building on the momentum of the last.
And you can really see the momentum building over the decades, right? It starts in Stockholm in '72, gets its official name tag with the Brundtland Report in '87, and then that leads to the massive 1992 Rio Earth Summit, which gave us the first real global action plan. And it all builds toward 2015, a truly landmark year for this entire story. But hold on, before we jump to 2015, we have to talk about a super critical turning point in 2012. At a conference called Rio Plus 20, world leaders got together and drafted a document called The Future We Want. And right there, in that document, they formally agreed to create a new set of universal goals to guide global development. This was the direct spark for the framework we all use today.
And that brings us to a single number, 17. So, what's the big deal with the number 17? It represents what is probably the most ambitious and comprehensive plan humanity has ever put together for a better future.
These are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Think of them as a universal to-do list for the planet. They cover everything, from ending poverty and hunger to making sure everyone has quality education and affordable clean energy. They tackle inequality, they promote peace, and, absolutely critically, they demand urgent action on climate change. And that last goal, number 17, points to a vital truth. None of this gets done unless we all work together.
Now, inside this big story of sustainable development, there's a really important subplot we need to zoom in on: the dedicated global fight against climate change, which has its own unique history of treaties and agreements.
The groundwork for all the climate action we talk about today was actually laid way back at that 1992 Rio Earth Summit. The agreement is called the UNFCCC, and it set this ultimate, massive goal to stabilize the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere so we can avoid catastrophic climate change.
So, under that big umbrella, you've got two major treaties that have really defined the global effort. First came the Kyoto Protocol in 1997. It had legally binding targets, but only for developed countries. Then, in 2015, came the Paris Agreement,
And this was a huge shift. Instead of top-down rules for just a few countries, it's a bottom-up agreement for everyone. Every country sets its own voluntary targets. They're called NDCs, and we all work toward that shared global goal of keeping warming well below 2 degrees Celsius.
So here we are. After, half a century of work, we have this incredible blueprint for our common future. The principles are there, the goals have been set, the frameworks are in place, but, and it's a big but, having a map isn't the same thing as actually making the journey.
And let's be clear, the stakes could not be higher. This isn't some abstract problem for our grandkids to solve. It's happening right now. The rising temperatures, the crazy weather events, the impact on our ecosystems and our food supply, these are the real-world consequences these global agreements are trying to stop. All right, so let's just quickly pull all those threads together. The whole thing started with that core idea of sustainable development from the Brundtland Report. That idea got its stage at the big Earth summits, which led to specific frameworks like the UNFCCC for climate, and it all led to the 2 great blueprints of 2015, the Universal Paris Agreement on Climate and those 17 Sustainable Development Goals for a better world.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. The plans are on the table. The goals have been set. We know what our common future could look like. The only real question left for all of us is whether we have the collective will to actually build it.